Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Gwynn, and the Insider crew.
So I told Vu when we did this opening, don't put your name in it because what happens if you're not here? And he wouldn't listen to me. So every time I got to say, I'm not Vu Gwynn. Vu, of course, is recovering from at home. He had a medical emergency. Everyone here at Rennsport has passed along best wishes, which we have also to Vu. He's doing great, and when he comes next week on the podcast, he will give the whole lowdown of what happened and why he missed Rennsport. But we are now at the tail end of Rennsport, and we wanted to put in another podcast before we close shop. So I have with me a special guest, regular Insider crew member, Damon Lowney, our digital media coordinator. Right next to me, Richard Strahota, our National Treasurer. Then at the far end, Todd Benz, our National Secretary. So, guys, Richard, where are you from? Let us know.
Well, my wife Trish and I live in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Scottsdale, Arizona. Todd?
We live in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
It looks like you had to think about it for a second.
Well, I couldn't hear myself, so I wasn't sure if it was coming through. So,
you don't hear yourself, it's not coming out.
I know. So, Fox River Valley region, and it's a great place to be. So, thank you for having me.
All right, super. So, like I said, it is it's Sunday. It's the end of around noon here at Laguna Seca. We've never done a podcast with anybody watching us, so this is a little strange. Usually, we do it early in the morning. At a parade, or we have our own studio in there, and it's literally 3 or 4 of us in the room. And I always tell people I probably get censored from Boo because I always think it's just the 3 of us speaking, and no one else is going to be listening to what we're saying. But evidently, we have a big audience because I know Damon commented on this. We had a lot of people come up to us to tell us that they're podcast listeners and they enjoy our content as well as our videos. So that was pretty. Made you feel good, didn't you, Damon?
It did, and my ego is like way above my head right now. I need to get the heck out of here and back to Maryland so I can, get back to normal.
Come back down to earth.
Oh,
yeah.
Man. But I appreciate the comments. It motivates us.
When we're unloading the pod, when it comes back, then it'll come back to earth that we're not celebrities, that we're grunts like everyone else is.
Yeah, just normal people.
So, like you imagine, and you have to excuse the race cars in the back if you want to say that's the excuse. It's great distraction. But they are racing here at Laguna Seca as we do the podcast. And if you don't know where we're located between turns 2 and 3, and I guess 3 and 4. So we're right like in catty corner to both turns. It's what they usually call Barbecue Island, but this 4 days it was called the Porsche Plots. And our theme color is yellow. So when I saw the overhead shots watching Motor Trend TV, they're been live streaming for the past 3 days. We stuck out like a sore thumb. I'm not sure the idea of using white print over yellow was the best idea. On the back wall here in the tent, which is pretty large, they set up a whole section for autograph signing, and they wanted to be slick. Porsche wanted to be slick and use white lettering over yellow, and then to make it even special, they put it inside of a glass frame that shows glare. So I know there was a bunch of people online who couldn't read the names thinking they need to go to the eye doctor. But we're easy to spot. So we said we were going to talk about some of our favorite, moments, memories. But I want to go through and see how many Rennsports we've been. So, Todd, is this your first Rennsport? Have you been to any other?
No, this is my first Rennsport, and I'm going to tell you it's extremely overwhelming, but unbelievable.
Damon, how many have you been to?
This would be my 4th. My first one was Rennsport 4 here at Laguna Seca, so I've been able to see it grow and also the crowds grow.
Now, Richard, you already told me, so I'm bummed out because I used to be the one with the most.
Yeah, well, this is my 7th Rennsport.
And there's only been 7.
And I've had the good fortune of racing in the first 4. So, and then the last 3, including this one, I've been a spectator and enjoyed all of them, but I guess the racing ones were a different experience than just being a spectator. But
this is my 6th one, and I got to race at Rennsport 2. I think I actually like not being a racer. I really like being a spectator because when you're racing, you're really worried. Your head's in the game. You're worried about having the car ready.
That's true.
And I found that I didn't enjoy the event as much
Yeah.
as a spectator. Although now, I guess being with PCA, I found out that I probably got less to see of the event than I did when I raced.
Well, the racers this weekend had PCA racers had an advantage because they had 2 races, but they were both yesterday, right? So they've had today to really be like us and just roam around and enjoy themselves.
And so yesterday, being Saturday, wasn't the best day as far as weather. And I jinxed it myself, and I knew at the moment the first raindrop fell, because all along I've been telling people the reason they choose Laguna Seca, being Porsche, the reason they choose is it never rains at Laguna Seca. That's one thing you don't have to worry about is rain. And as I watched the rain come down, I was just in awe that it actually rained. It looked like the East Coast.
Yeah.
It was just rained and rained. Yeah. Still, there was a huge crowds on Saturday. And I didn't stick around for the Doobie Brothers because that was, by 6 o'clock, I was just done. I was so tired. But I heard the concert was phenomenal. Yeah. I don't know if you guys even made it. Did you guys make it out to the Doobie Brothers?
No, I was.
Actually, I did. Tom and Elaine Gorsuch, and then my son Justin and I were out there, and it was a very good concert. We kind of got a second wind, and we actually stayed to the very end, so it was well worth the wait. So,
sorry, Todd. So, being a first timer, and I told you to think about this ahead of time. What's your best memory of Rennsport? And I know there's a lot. There's a lot going on.
Well, I can't even really pick out the best one. My issue is I still haven't been able to see everything yet. But the Heritage Edition section over by Tag Heuer is, to me, one of the most exquisite displays of Porsche history in the racing. And to be able to be a part of that and watch and look and read, and I mean, it would take almost a whole day to get through that. Then we went over to the garage area, the pit row area, and there's even more over there. So there's just not one. It's just the whole event is quite overwhelming. Every time I think I've seen everything, I haven't. And so, yeah, it's pretty special for sure.
Damon?
Let's see. I haven't gotten to go and see too much. I actually haven't been in the paddock except for a couple of the permanent garages. And I got to see Don Maluzio's 901 prototype in the Tag Heuer tent, which I believe Manny and I are going to go do a quick walk around of that with my camera in hand later today, so I'll be able to enjoy that a little bit. But if I had to pick one moment that was my favorite, it would have to be being able to, I had the opportunity to interview, or I should say, I filmed an interview. One of our freelancers, Laura Burstein, interviewed Grant Larson about the new GT3R Rennsport, and being able to be, you know, you have all these people, you know, they're behind the stanchions, you know, in the rope, and they can't get in, and then you just go, hey, I've got an interview with Grant Larson, and they let you in, you go set up your cameras, you know, and, you know, you get to go, you just say, hey, can I go film the car for a little bit before he gets here? And you're just really geeking out on all the parts, you know, looking at the brakes, which look unlike any brake I've seen on a street car, the ambient, you know, lighting, which matches the headlights, which it's an amazingly styled car, and what a big wing as well, you know. So that was a highlight for me.
Richard?
Yeah, it's tough to, like Todd, it's tough to come up with one. I guess I would say the just seeing the pure joy in people's faces, people who have maybe not have had the opportunity to go to other Rennsports, the first timers, and just walking around and seeing cars that maybe they saw when they were a bit younger, saw those on the track or whatever, and just seeing the joy in people's faces is really special to me. Because like you said, when you're racing, you don't pay any attention to any of that. You're just worried about yourself and what you're going to do on the track. You don't really get to experience the event through the eyes of others, and that's really been the special thing, especially here in the PCA Porsche Platz. Seeing people come through, many of whom I haven't met before, but meeting some new friends and then reuniting with old friends. It's been great.
And they've come from everywhere and around the world. I had three guys come, and they were from Australia, and they were podcast listeners, which once again is very, very freaky for me that somebody from Australia is listening to us, and they actually joined PCA. They listen to, I guess, when Rue and I always promote joining PCA. We always say in our podcast, we're not asking for your money. You don't have to join Patreon or anything like that. But, hey, if you have a Porsche, we'd love for you to join PCA. And they went ahead and joined PCA. So when you join PCA and you're an international member, member services just randomly assigned you to a different region. So they were wearing their membership card around their neck. And one of us from Central Iowa.
Oh, very good.
He asked me where that was. I had to tell him. The other one was Alpine Mountain region. I explained where that was in Colorado. And the other one was Loma Prieto, which I think around Sacramento, close to. I said, well, you're a local.
I think Loma Prieta is actually closer to around Monterey, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
When you're from the East Coast, this is all local.
Oh, it's all just California, right?
Don't get technical on me, Damon.
Yeah.
So that was that's pretty good, cool how people came from around the world and the United States just to this event.
Yeah.
Well,
you expect to see the cars, and the cars are all here, all the ones you expect. But just the joy and energy from the other people you see that are taking it all in is really special.
Yeah, and one of the things I thought was fascinating was, we're here at Laguna Seca, and we've been here many a times for a Works reunion, and walking around, and you hear all these different languages. My son and I had the opportunity to go to Le Mans last year, and that kind of gave me the same sense that I was in a different country almost, because there was so many different nationalities being represented here. That kind of took me back a little bit. That was very cool to hear that.
I got to say, my best memory, I spent a lot of time here at the tent, and I did a lot of the interviews of the legends who came by. And the one story that was not in a Porsche, but I got the legend to tell it, was when we had Danny Sullivan, who drove a 962 and a 956. And so a member in the audience, we were doing Q&A, and a member asked each driver at the time, we had, I think, Alwyn Springer, Elliot Force Robinson, and Danny Sullivan. And so the question was, what's your most memorable, what's your best memory as in your career? And when it came to Danny, he said, well, obviously it's a spin and win. And so then we went down the line. Alwyn gave his. So I after they got done, I said, well, I can't leave this alone, and I'm going to, since I have you hostage here on the stage, I'm going to ask you to tell everyone that story of spin and win. So I asked the audience, which was standing room only, and I said, how many know what a spin and win is? The famous spin and win. And about, surprisingly, 40% of the people raised their hand. I said, well, I told them, I said, well, you're going to hear the story, and I want you to go back and YouTube spin and win Danny Sullivan. And luckily, Robert, of course, found it on YouTube really quick as Danny started telling the story. And what we could see it on the screen and hearing it from the driver of what was going through his head as this Indy car is spinning, and the surprise that he's still facing in the race direction, and how he got the car started. It was a very cool experience. I think it only happened at Rennsport. And, of course, all the other people, when I interview them, I'm very selfish in the sense that I'm looking for them to answer questions I've always had. And we just got done with Kevin Jeanette from Gunner Racing, who was a crew chief during the famous Preston Hen Swap Shop 935, the one where A.J. Foyt gets recruited after his car breaks down, and they don't tell Bob Wallach, and Bob freaks out. And Kevin did a great job of telling that story to everyone, how they end up winning the race, because it turns out A.J. Foyt, who had never been in a 911, much less a 935, actually knew how to drive and turned some amazing laps. So, yeah, that's that to me, it's kind of special about Rennsport.
So, Manny, what was your most memorable moment this weekend so far?
Well, the stories of from the drivers. It was also special. We had, of course, Dr. Wolfgang Porsche come by, and he was with his son Ferdy Porsche and his nephew Mark Porsche. By the way, these are all grown men now. They're not. Mark Porsche is the son of Butzi Porsche, who of course designed the 911, and Mark's been to several Porsche parades, and of course so has Ferdy. But seeing, we met Wolfgang. We went to go get him, But then we went to pick him up at the paddock. They told us, no, he's going to meet you at the Porsche Plots parking lot. So we took the golf carts over there. We met him. There's Panorama. He comes in a Panorama, by the way, or Panamera, excuse me. And he got out, and we ferried him over here. But he wanted to stop because, and I thought this was very telling. Here's a guy whose last name is on all our cars, and you would think growing up as a Porsche, you had seen everything. He still stopped, and he almost jogged out to these cars in the corral and was taking pictures of them.
That's great.
Almost like someone for the first time at Rennsport Reunion, and I thought that is so cool that you can see he still has the enthusiasm at 80 years old for the brand and for really his own cars.
Yes, you did a great job with that interview, by the way.
Well, actually,
Nice.
that wasn't me, but I appreciate that, Richard. That was actually your boss, the president, Aaron
it was,
Ambrosino.
Well, he did a great
You
job.
notice, Aaron?
Yeah.
There he is. Yes, he
There
did.
he is.
Did a great job, particularly because I don't think Wolfgang knew he was going to be interviewed.
Oh, I see.
He had
And-
this wide-eyed look when Robert was sticking his hand up his shirt or his jacket to put the microphone. But he's always a pro, and of course, Ferdy and Mark answered a lot of questions as well. But having the Porsche family come.
So, and then how about the volunteers that we've had helping to run the event? Like some of the people here, Trish and I got here at probably 6:30 every
You were
morning.
late.
And
You
I
were
was
late.
late.
Yes.
There
Yes.
was already at least.
You're about an hour late.
There was already at least 50 volunteers at work.
So 50 out of 600 that signed up to volunteer.
Yeah,
We actually
yeah.
had to shut down the registration site because
Yeah.
we reached our maximum
Yeah.
T-shirt and poster allotment. But yes, PCA is legendary for its
Yeah.
volunteer corps,
Yeah.
and we didn't disappoint this time. And the volunteers were working majority in the corral. We were here on the Porsche Plaza Island working hospitality, but the ones that showed up in the morning at 5:30 to start setting up because we had parade laps. And parade laps, while they went on the track at 7:30, you had to be here at 6:30
6:30.
at the latest. And of course, PCA members are notorious for coming here earlier than they're supposed to. So we had meaning the office crew, we would leave the hotel around 5. We had to stop by Starbucks, pick up all the, 200 gallons of coffee and supplies, and then hustle up to the track. And by the time we got to the track, there was already like 10 volunteers setting up for these 120 cars that would be showing up shortly and lining them up to take them out on the parade laps. And you multiply that by 4 days straight. It was a rinse and repeat every morning.
Not a lot of
this.
sleep,
And on
that's for sure.
Saturday in the rain, they were still there. We thought no one would show up, but they were still in the rain helping us set up for the parade laps.
I
Yeah.
did learn one thing about the Laguna Seca track, though, yesterday in the rain, that even when it stopped raining, I noticed there was a big puddle exiting pit lane. So the cars exiting pit lane would come around, and probably much to their surprise, in the middle of the corner before they joined onto the track at turn 2, they had to go through a big puddle while they were in full steering mode.
I asked
So
them- I
that
asked
was
them-
kind of exciting for a few.
I wonder how many was their first time driving in the rain at Laguna. Because I asked a
Yeah.
member who's done a lot of
Yeah.
driver's ed events and club racing, I said, have you ever done it in the rain? He said, never.
Yeah.
So he was going to, even though it was a parade lap, we were asking everyone to drive reasonably
Yeah.
because we didn't want to have anybody spin out and lose control, especially, you don't want to wreck your car on a parade lap. That's
No,
nothing
that
to be
wouldn't-
proud
that
of or to
wouldn't be
brag
good.
about. No, it's probably actually kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
So Robert's putting up some pictures, and I can see this was another, I guess, highlight when we had Hurley Haywood and this actor, what's his name, Patrick Dempsey.
Patrick Dempsey. Yeah.
I can't tell you how many women were asking me to bring Patrick Dempsey over so they could take a photo, as if Patrick would go anywhere I told him to, including the ladies from member services were like, you're going to bring him over, right? And I was like, he has handlers. It's and as soon as he gets done, he like dashes out of here to because if not, he'll get mobbed by autograph and photo seekers. But Patrick is very generous with his time. He was a little late, so we started the interview with Hurley Haywood, and the reason him and Hurley were together was because Patrick executive produced the movie Hurley. So and Hurley, of course, was his mentor when he was driving the 911 and at Le Mans. So, but we talked mainly about cars. I don't think we talked anything about Hollywood, or at least I hate to tell it. I didn't want to tell him, but I've never watched Grey's Anatomy, so I wouldn't even know where to watch. I'm not even sure I can name. I can name one movie of his, Can't Buy Me Love, because I remember reading that from that movie he took the money he was paid. He bought himself a 356 Cabriolet, which was his first Porsche. So I remember that story, but unfortunately, I'm not. I don't know the Patrick Dempsey filmography, but he's a very nice guy, very articulate, and a huge Porsche fanatic.
Yeah, we know the racer and the team owner. So I wish I had been here for the Patrick Dempsey presentation. I would have loved to ask him about, and don't get mad at me, but remember when he was running RX-8s?
He spoke about it. We talked about it.
Oh, you did?
Yes, we did.
I wish I were here for that.
Yeah, he had the sound of it. That's how he got started.
Yeah.
I think his partner Joe Foster, who he raced with a lot from Porsche and Mazda, that's how they met, or that's first thing they started racing. And he was.
What did you say about the RX-8s? Just a couple words.
Loud.
I asked him how it was compared to the RSR.
Yeah.
And of course it was like day and night difference because the 911 has so much more aero.
Oh yeah.
So he got he understood how sweet aero is going in the corners, where the RX-8 was more, I would guess, a street car.
Plus with the
I see.
PDK, I'm sure it's a much faster car.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
overall.
It's
yeah.
and somebody asked him, when are you going to get back behind the wheel? And he said, probably pretty soon, because his kids are grown and his wife has kind of given him the permission. So he said he probably won't do endurance racing again, but he'll be definitely in the sprint races. So he kind of mentioned the Carrera Cup, the Deluxe Carrera Cup series. So
nice.
who knows?
Interesting.
Next Rennsport, we may see him with the Carrera Cup group.
So how about the historic display that Tom and Sandy Pravasi organized? For
There
us out
was
there?
2 displays. We had the Tag Heuer, where they had all the iconic race cars, and then we had there's 3 grass pads. I think it's the only grass at Laguna Seca, and they bring it in as it's not even it's real grass, but they kind of like sod is what the word I'm looking for. But Tom and Sandy Pravasi, who normally run our Works Reunion events, I asked them to once again to do the special display, the curated display of special colors, which were that's the theme this year for Porsche, is the colors. So they did a great job. All street cars of different colors.
Yeah, and all models were represented
Yes.
at 928s, 914s.
Yeah, it was celebrating
very
75 years of Porsche, as well as we didn't have one for every year, but we certainly had every decade covered.
Yeah, beautiful display. Lots of cool colors.
Yeah, but the Tag Heuer display, that used to be, I think, Chopard last Rennsport.
Yeah.
This time it's Tag Heuer. If you want to condense your visit into 15 minutes and you can't go anywhere else, and that's where you go to, because you can see a lot of history in one fairly large tent.
Yeah.
Well, and 15 minutes won't be enough, but if you have an opportunity, right, there's a history of Porsche racing, definitely.
Yeah, otherwise you'll be walking around the paddock, and there's just so much, as you said, Todd, that it's overwhelming. The Tag Heuer display, at least it presents you a lot of the really significant cars. So if you're here for one day, as Manny said, that's what you visit. Make sure you go there, and then everything else is a bonus.
Well, what's nice, too, is they give you a brief history. So, I mean, if you don't get a chance to remember it all, just take pictures and you can walk through. But it really articulates the history, the importance of what Porsche did in motorsports, and some of the stuff I'm learning for the first time on some of it. It's incredible.
Yeah, so the last podcast I talked about, we did it before Rennsport started. It was kind of like behind the scenes. And I think I told a story about spotting this former Vasek Polak race car that I thought was a 908. Turned out it was a 906 Spider. And when the owner told me it was a Spider, well, Porsche never built a 906 Spider, but I remember reading about Alwyn Springer cutting the roof off a Spider. And I saw Vasek Polak, who in Alwyn Springer's book, he was working for Vasek Polak, and he did it for Milt Miltner because they were trying to make the car more competitive because it was already kind of old. And I said to the guy, I go, wow, this must be the car that Alwyn Springer cut the roof off of and made a Spider. And the guy said, no, this is a Milt Miltner car. And I said, that's what it is. So I said, I'm going to mentally remember that. And if I see Alwyn, I'll bring it up. So the day after we recorded the podcast, Alwyn came over for autograph session, and I asked him, and he smiled, and he said, I already autographed it, and spoke to the owner. He goes, that was the car. Awesome. And suddenly, to me, that became the most popular car, the car I was so happy to get to see, because it, having read the story. And Damon, if you were, hopefully the viewers and our members will see the video, but he talked about that in an interview we did at VIR that you recorded. He talked about cutting the roof off and how mad Leszek Polak got when he got back.
You wouldn't think that would work. You just saw a roof off the car.
Yeah, and back then, I guess the 906s weren't worth that much, so it wasn't a big deal. Or he didn't think twice about cutting. He was thinking more about speed and lap times.
Yeah.
It's crazy. We were at VIR interviewing Cam Ingram and Alvin Springer, and that feels like it was 2 years ago at this point, doesn't it? Like, it's
everything seems a long time ago.
Something I would love to hear, Manny, is you got to interview Alois Roof as well as Don Luzio about those 901 prototypes, and I, of course, filmed the interviews filmed the interviews for a video that'll come out at a later date. But here's the thing: when you were talking to Alois Roof, I didn't hear a single thing you said because of all the cars that were going on around the track. Can you tell us a little bit about,
I figured you couldn't hear, because when I got done, I looked over and you were staring at the sky. And because usually you're likely to give a thumbs up or something, and I thought, I hope he said go, because we just spent 20 minutes talking about the car. Yeah, it was very loud here in the paddock, so the microphones pick up the voice fine, but you, like Todd had the problem, you can't hear yourself. You think the equipment's not working. Yeah. So yes, Alois Roof, of course, if you follow any kind of car stuff, you know that he showed this car at Pebble Beach this year and won his class. It's a beautiful enamel blue color. It's and it's a prototype, one of the 901 prototypes that Porsche built. I think they built 7, and there's 2 left in the world, and 2 of them are here. Don Maluzio has a red one, which was called Barbarossa, and Alois has the blue one, which is called Quickblau. And so he was very gracious in that he sat down with us and told a story about this car. But before that, when he got here, originally he was going to be displayed with the color display of Tom and Sandy, but he asked not to park in the grass. And I found this out when I was in line to get lunch in the paddock, and my friend who was volunteering was working the front entrance to the plots, and he said, I have Alois Roof here in front of me, and they want to park the car, and is that okay? And I said, sure. I said, let me tell you where to park it. And he was just so thrilled that he got to speak to Mr. Roof. He said he couldn't believe that Mr. Roof was talking to him and whatnot. And of course, Alois is very articulate and very kind. And so Damon set up the shot in front of the car, and we sat down, and he basically told a story about how his father bought him this car when he was 17. Yeah. The actual prototype had a wooden engine in it. It was just a mock-up. And then when they were done with the prototype, they kind of stuck it at the factory and stuck it in the corner. And his father did business with the factory and was walking around and sees this old 911 in the corner and makes an offer on it. And back then you could buy prototypes. Now it's impossible because of liability reasons to get a prototype. But for them, they would take money anywhere because it was a small company. And so his dad made an offer on it, brought it home, told Alois, this is going to be your car, but you have to find an engine for it, and it can only be a 912 engine. It can't be a 911 engine. So Alois said he was thrilled that he was getting a 911. He sourced a 356 SC engine, put it in, and he loved the car. He drove it everywhere. And for him, it was plenty of power. Then he went to sell it, I believe, if I get the story right. And this person who was looking at buying it wrecked it, put it into a ditch. And so he said at this point, he was busy with starting roof up, and he didn't have time to really address it, so he kind of stuck it in the barn, in the family barn, and left it there for, I think, 4 decades maybe.
Wow. And he didn't know it was a prototype at this point, or did they know?
Yes, they finally found out that it was a prototype. He said originally they didn't know, but nothing would fit right on the car. They would get replacement parts, and suddenly, like the window, he said it wouldn't work right. The window, everything was off on the car. But they eventually found that it was one of the prototypes. So he said he was waiting because he wanted to debut it at the 60th anniversary. So they spent 5 years restoring it. he holds on to it for 1 year, doesn't tell anybody about it, and then this year he debuted it. And for those who couldn't go to Pebble Beach, you saved a lot of money because you could come to the Porsche plots and get it probably up closer than it was at Pebble Beach.
And we're staring at it now.
Yeah,
So
it's still out there.
Quite beautiful.
Yeah, when he first displayed
there
it.
was a third 901 here, too. Did you see
But
that
it was not the
one?
prototype.
It was not
Right,
the prototype, but how many 901s were there? Like 26 or something?
Something, and the story goes, of course, that Peugeot
Yeah.
got all upset because they put a zero in the middle, and
Yeah.
Peugeot owned zeros.
So there's a red 901 owned by Don Murray from Scottsdale that is in the little area where they made that pit lane, that faux pit lane
Yes,
from
like
the area.
it looked
in
like
the first garage.
Goodwood, something from
Yes,
Goodwood.
it's from something from Goodwood, but there's the first garage. Don's 550 Spider in French blue is there.
I know Don. Yeah,
along with his 901 that Mr. Roof and his associates.
It would be great to get all three of them
restored.
together. Yeah.
You know, so that car's laying there, and it's a red car also. But it's amazing to me the difference between the blue car prototype and Dom's earlier
Yes.
red car, and just the features and where they were
So we also interviewed-
evolving the style.
We also interviewed Don Maluzio, and he gave us a tour of his car. And yes, it's amazing the stuff they didn't put on. What was cool about his car was the ventilation to the side windows. They tried to do a very complex,
Very
path,
Germanic.
Yes, of sending it. It looks like it would work, and I asked him. I said, "Well, did it work?" And he said, "Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It couldn't get any air to the side windows."
If it looks like it would work and you're
Yeah.
thinking that, it probably doesn't, does it?
Exactly.
And the sunroof slides forward on that car, if I recall.
Yeah, and I've heard it.
Yeah.
I've known Don for a
Yeah.
while, so
Yeah.
I've heard the story. But Porsche refused to acknowledge that he did that sunroof. It was a center sunroof that moved forward,
Yeah.
and they called it California BS. This is exactly how he tells the story. He said some hot rodder in California did this, not Porsche. Could have
So
never.
that's not a Porsche sunroof.
But no, the story was they refused. They said Porsche would never have done this.
Yeah.
And Don, who's in the car game, he owns several dealerships. He said, "I've been in the car game too long. I can tell you that is not aftermarket. That's all factory. The way they did that."
So-
And finally, in one of the trips to Stuttgart, they make a phone call to one of the retired engineers who may have worked around 63. And when they tell the engineer what they're looking for, he remembers right away and describes in detail the operation of the sunroof. And that finally convinced Porsche that this was a legitimate
That's cool.
sunroof that they had designed but never went to production. They just used it on Don's car.
And the gauges in that car are amazing. You know, the
Two
totally
gauges.
different.
Yeah.
Totally different than
From
the-
a
BMW, you said.
BMW 507, they believe.
Yeah.
They look huge. I mean, thank God cooler heads prevailed and they went to
Exactly.
because Alois has the first one with the 5 gauge, which thank God they stuck with that, not the big 2 gauge that Don has on his.
Yeah.
But his car, Don's car was used for research and development. And I asked him, I said, how much underneath when you restored it? Because usually they're constantly cutting things like the black Ferdinand 356. They cut so many holes inside of it to try out heating ideas, and they would patch it up. And he said that's the exact same thing on his car when they restored it. And it wasn't like a clean, it was just enough to cover it up, a couple rivets and on to the next thing. And he said all over his car is that kind of work that was done where they just cut holes to try different ideas for heating ventilation.
You know, that's one thing that's been fascinating is hearing all these interviews and talking to the drivers, and you hear all these little tidbits of history. And I often wondered, what would it be like if you were a fly on the wall and just listening to these guys, either back in the day or now when they get together, and you hear all these different stories about different things. It's just like the history is just incredible.
I think Rennsport 2 was at Daytona, and I still remember they had an engineering panel up front, and it was like 4 or 5 retired engineers. I think it was Hans Metzger, Valentin Schaefer, Peter Falk, I think, came. Anyways, they had gone at this point to Q&A from the audience, and somebody asked, what's the most horsepower you were able to get out of the 91730? And they sat there and they looked at each other, and then they looked like beyond the
They didn't get their
the
stories
crowd. They
together,
were
did they?
looking at their handler as to say, "Can we talk about this?" This is a question from 1973. This car, they still think it's top secret information.
And what can we actually say? Or
Well, he
what
finally
not say?
they weren't sure if they could really tell the exact number, and he said, I believe he said at 1,500 you're okay. At 1,600 the valves come out of the exhaust.
Wow.
So we assumed that 1,500 was the max
I'm
of
sure that was rather
horsepower.
spectacular sight seeing them come out.
But the
too.
fact that they were so nervous about talking about this information they thought was sworn to secrecy.
Yeah.
It's
So did you get a chance to see the tractor races?
I saw it on. I saw it as they went by here, where
Yeah.
we can see the entry into, I guess, turn 2.
Yes.
Because turn 1 is like a little like
Yeah.
barely you can call it a turn. I guess at
Right.
speed it feels like a turn.
It's a kind of a kink.
Yeah, kink. That's a good word.
Yeah.
So we can see them coming down a hill, and
Yeah.
their bark is worse than their bite.
Yeah.
I think the commentators make more noise than the tractors do.
Yeah, and they have they have gravity going for them, especially right here where we're watching them. And, what was funny was as they were coming around, and I was walking past trying to get to another location in the infield, and I took a look, and I see there's one of the tractors was streamlined. He had a bunch of body work, and I was thinking to myself, man, that's got to be the fastest
Is
tractor.
that the orange one?
I think so, yeah.
Allgaier,
So
yeah.
that's a coffee bean tractor.
Yeah. the
Okay,
little
so it's not for
Allgaier.
aerodynamics.
No, that's a legitimate Porsche built, and I believe Jeff Schwartz owns that.
No,
And
Yeah,
I know
he
that
does.
because when I went to the museum, they had the same type
Yep.
on display, and I read about it, and it turned out it was made for coffee bean harvesting.
Well, and I saw that they were coming out of pit row, or they instead of taking the turn, they actually cut down across the blend line, and they went through pit row just to get a little bit more distance because they didn't have enough horsepower to get through there.
Yeah, it's all momentum. It's like
Now,
racing
now
Miatas.
with tractors, they have a brake pedal for each rear wheel, right? So
Torque vectoring.
coming
Richard,
down.
you know more about tractors than I do.
So I was just wondering, though, coming into turn 2, if they only use the left rear brake to kind of help them turn, and let,
Do you think they break at all?
maybe not.
That's what I
Good,
would-
fairly good point.
That's where Porsche got its PTV Plus idea, right?
I know last year they were going off road, and they were, as F1 says, they were beyond track limits.
Well, I was getting a little concerned. They were starting to pass in the corner there. I was going, oh, this might not end well.
Yeah.
So what I would always hope, I wish they did a whole lap, because I bet you they would do like some sort of Zanardi pass, and that
Yeah.
would be so worth seeing. But man, we'd be here for 2 hours by the time they got to the corkscrew.
You're right. First time they raced it, I was dropping somebody off at the top of the of hospitality at the hill, so I could hear the announcer talking about it. So I took the golf cart and I parked it right between 1 and 2, and I said, "I'll watch it here." And I'm hearing the announcer, and he's like screaming, they're off and this, that, really excited. And I'm waiting. I'm thinking they must have started the race like in turn 4 or something, because they would have been by. And I swear it felt like 5 minutes, and I saw the top of somebody's head bobbing, and
Yeah.
then I realized that these were moving
Well,
really slow.
They did the Le Mans start, right,
That
where
too.
the drivers
Yeah.
had to run across and get the.
I have a feeling this time around, because the last Rennsport is the first time it was a novelty. Everybody brought their tractors out, but I think when they had 5 years to prepare, and I wanted to find out how many people cheated and made hot rod motors.
There was
Because Porsche
one-
people would do that.
There was one person that had quite a large lead coming out of turn 2. It didn't look like.
So Kevin Jeanette last time, and he brought it again this time. He put a wing on the back of his. He painted it like a pink pig, and he had a little trailer with toy plastic tractors. He called the piglets.
Yeah.
And I think John Oates drove it, but the GT3 wing on the back was awesome.
Yeah. And
So I have to ask now: is when they start the tractor, is it on left hand or right hand?
that I don't know.
I don't know. I was just thinking of that because I haven't looked at one real close.
But going back to the prototypes, when we were filming Don Maluzio's car, it didn't have the left side ignition. It had it on the column. And I asked him, I said, I noticed the keys on the column.
That's interesting.
And he said, yeah, it's actually a VW bus ignition. So at that point, they suddenly thought about making the key on the left, which once again,
not know
thank
that.
God, cooler heads prevailed, and they ended up to do it. It didn't become like just any other car with it on the steering column.
So I have to interrupt for 1 second, but we're sitting here looking at turns, what is it, 2 and 3, I believe? Two.
Yeah.
And Porsche, there's no racing going on, but we're watching a 963 prototype hybrid race car circling the track along with the brand new GT3R Rennsport. And then some other car that's out there that I can't quite tell.
They're also racing.
pretty
Or
amazing.
they have a couple
Yeah.
GT3 RSs. They got
Yeah.
some.
These are called
Cayman-
exhibition laps.
Yeah, they got a
exhibition
4
laps.
I think
RS out
the
there.
GT3 R Rennsport is out there also, right?
So
it is,
Yes.
it is.
that's
Yes.
my only disappointment of Rennsport. I was expecting something better. Honestly, I did. All this time, I had my sights that they would release the 911 hybrid, the next
yeah.
generation 911.
Yeah, I
I
see what
thought,
you
what a
mean.
better time! 75 years of Porsche, 60 years of 911. Do it here at Rennsport.
Yeah.
I mean, the car they released is pretty awesome. It definitely a throwback to the 935. But they're only making 77.
77.
Yeah, 77.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure are already spoken for.
Well, and they
What color are you getting?
Yeah.
Can
The
you
model?
Well, then yesterday they also had the GT4E Performance out there, and that was really awesome.
What do you
to see
think
that.
about the sound of it?
I'll tell you what, I was very impressed. Now, if you had 25, 35 of those cars going around at the same time, it's going to be very exciting to hear them run and see them run. Their acceleration out of the corners are just tremendous.
35 of those would like scare dogs. That is so high pitched. There is nothing
It
sexy
is.
about that sound.
But it's a sound that it's kind of more of like a sci-fi sound, but when you hear that, it's just there's no
It
shifting.
is.
I'm with Todd on this.
Yeah.
I like that sound. I know a lot of
I
people.
was shocked.
It's the
I was
sound of
shocked.
the future.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
they've been paid off by Porsche to say that.
Yeah.
There's
I-
no
I-
way that sounded
Does it
good.
look like I was paid off by Porsche?
Well, I've seen them before, but
Yeah,
I've never
for a
seen them in
race.
action. Never
I love
seen
the
them in the wild.
technology behind it.
And to hear that and see it at full
Yeah.
speed, it was
The
impressive.
acceleration between 2 and 3
Yes.
was just ungodly.
Coming out of
my
the
gosh.
corner was
Yeah.
unbelievable.
There was no lag, nothing. It was instant
Yeah.
power.
Yeah.
But I hadn't thought about 30 of them at one time. That's pretty.
Yeah, you might need earplugs, but you also need earplugs perhaps with some combustion engine racing.
Well,
There's a
we
lot of
know
stuff
that.
on
I mean,
track.
that's.
Yeah.
Oh, the
So
Cup cars
Damon,
are crazy
I'm sure
loud.
you've noticed watching the cars come around through turn 2, the two GT4 Club Sports coming through, or I guess maybe they're GT3 RSs in full drift.
Yeah.
Yes,
mode,
those are the
full
3
opposite
RSs.
lock coming around.
So I hadn't. I thought I heard some tires squeal
Yeah,
actually, but I wasn't
I did.
watching. But
So
I'm,
here
are
they
they doing
come,
donuts?
yeah.
But
Yeah,
no, they're
definitely full drift mode
Full
coming
drift.
through right next to each other.
Yeah.
So,
putting on quite a
last
display.
Rennsport, they debuted the 935. But this
Yeah.
Yep.
time they did the GT3R, is it? Is that what the-
GT3R
R
Rennsport.
Rennsport, okay. So 2 Rs. GT3R Rennsport.
A big R, and I guess the Rennsport R is a lowercase.
But they didn't have any special edition. Last time they had the special edition Rennsport.
Oh,
I
yeah,
have
street
to
car.
commend
True.
Porsche for having restraint
Yep.
because it doesn't take much for them to come with a special
Because I think
edition.
they only made 25 of those last time.
I think that's all they could
Yeah.
possibly sell.
I wonder if they sold them all. Ooh, whoops.
25? Yeah, I think they would have.
Well, it's just, speaking of the internal combustion engines, I noticed on all the GT cars that are running, they got the e-fuels symbol on them, and they're really promoting the e-fuels, and all their race cars are all running e-fuels. So it's great to see them promoting that even further. So hopefully we'll get a little bit more life out of our ICE cars.
Yep, and I feel a little bit better about myself, and I guess this event in general, knowing we're not putting as many hydrocarbons into the air, right? Maybe.
How did you
Maybe.
How did you get back to the hotel?
Oh yeah, and I guess there are 20,000 more people here at the track, huh? So than last
Yeah.
time. So axe that one, right?
Well, we did get to see the Mission X. Maybe
Oh,
it's,
I only got to see that when they were unloading it on
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Yes.
And I happened to walk by at the right time, and I've never seen a guy so quickly go into the trail to get the cover.
Oh, really?
And I'm
Yeah.
thinking to myself, this has already been out. It's not like
Yeah.
a spy shot or something, but
Yeah.
they must have not.
Well, you can get up close and personal to it today.
To walk
putting
over
that-
there to see. So,
Yeah.
what do you guys think of the Mission X?
I think it's super cool looking. Inside especially the interior. It's sort of a chocolatey brown. It's just beautiful interior.
Would you get one?
Well, it probably a little bit out of my price range.
If it wasn't, if it was in your price range.
If it was, of course, I would want to get on that list. I mean, it looks like a wonderful machinery.
Would you still get it if they said they're no longer doing a 918 circle type of incentive?
How you mean? You mean?
So the 918 wasn't selling great when it first came out, and they were kind of worried about that. So to incentivize people, they came up with the 918 circle, which I think gave you 10 years access to all the key cars, which now is like a brilliant move, because those who bought two 918s got double the fun of ordering all these ST Sport Classics before anyone else does.
Yeah, it's a great list to be on.
But
their 10 years are about up, aren't they?
It is, but they've said that they're not going to do that for the Mission X, and I'm waiting to see whether they really. Yeah. That seems like a pretty risky move when you only have X amount of people in the world with that kind of money, and they're going to maybe piss them off by saying there's not going to be any other list. Because you have that kind of funds, you want to be treated differently than somebody buying a base Boxster.
Well, they said that right now it's not officially a production vehicle. Obviously, this is a prototype.
Right, so Todd, they say that every time.
I know they're teasing us like this will never happen. The interesting part, though, that I think about that car is what innovations have they come up with through the development and testing of that car that we may see in some of their normal car. Well, I don't want to say normal, but the cars that are more available, and seeing what that comes to the streets with before that car becomes available.
So it's interesting is and I found this out from one of our members who has a 918. He's in a 918 circle. They had a meeting and they polled all the owners here, 918 circle owners, about what they thought about the Mission X.
Oh yeah, what'd they say?
And so I asked him, I said, so what did you tell him? And he had very good points. He said, I expect that by the time this comes to production, they will have figured out the batteries, meaning longer life, more distance. He said, emissions for the hybrid. They put a hybrid engine, whether they leave it all electric. He said that didn't really matter to him that much, but what seemed to matter was the 918 circle type of thing.
Really,
that was the.
It gave them the opportunity in the door to all these exciting models that Porsche produces in limited numbers that a lot of us don't even have a chance to get. So I can see for them that was a big hit.
He said he expects the car to be a flagship model like the 918 was, like the Carrera GT was, like the 959. It's got to be something that's leading edge and something that's still way in the future. So the car's relevant for a while.
Well, they're about due for one of these cars. I mean, it seems like every 10 years they come out with one of these. So, hopefully in the next couple of years we'll see, if that actually happens.
To me, it's kind of risky because the electric cars right now are just evolving so quickly.
Well, and then with the battery technology, I mean, even today the lithium technology is evolving, and solid-state batteries. I think for these cars to really go more mainstream, obviously we know the charging, but the solid-state technology I think is really going to propel these cars to that next level. To allow them more horsepower, more runtime, faster charging, and that could be the tipping point.
And less volatility as well.
We hope.
We hope, exactly.
So did you guys ever make it to the top of the corkscrew where the ST was located?
I did.
Yes.
Very impressive.
I'm the only one who didn't.
Yeah. You still have time, Manny. We'll get your shuttle up there. Yeah. I thought one of the cool, not only the first ST that I've seen, but also the safari cars that were up there in various poses along the rocks up on top of the hill. They were quite the thing. Very colorful.
They were
display.
doing like some demonstration runs with people in the car going down the off-road.
Yeah.
But I talked to a friend of mine who's an instructor for Porsche in driving school, and I said, "Oh, are you working at the one coming down the hill or the Land Rover experience usually that the Porsche took over?" And he said they had to shut down the one going down the hill because it was kicking up too much dust and people were complaining.
Well,
which I regret because we wanted to try it out. We were eating lunch watching them coming down the hill.
Well, we were told that one of the reasons they shut it down was spectators were starting to walk up and down that trail while they were
in for a surprise.
And I think the legal department may have intervened and said, well, maybe we better shut this down.
We couldn't figure out that was people, like regular people driving the car down and
no walking.
No, I'm talking about. At first, we didn't realize that's where the off-road experience was.
Oh,
We thought
okay.
it was like where the Land Rover display usually is.
Yeah.
Yep.
They've got a fake off-road course that
Right.
normally is a Land Rover sponsors it, and then you
Yeah.
can wait in
Yeah.
line and move up and down,
Yeah.
but you don't really go anywhere.
Right.
It's just a little circle.
Yeah.
But this one they were going at speed down this hill with the Cayenne.
Well, and they had quite a few going up there, and it was a great shuttle service. But like to Richard's point, the safari builds and the Dakar that were up there. I mean, the presentation. I mean, it was just like you'd find them in the wild,
Yeah.
where they should be.
Yeah.
And it was a really nice setup. But I was up there yesterday, and we had the rain, and there was some wind down here. But you went up to the top. That wind was quite amplified. And I'm from Green Bay. I'm kind of used to the cold, but I have never been more cold than I was yesterday when we were up on top of the corkscrew.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
the
Green
weather
Bay
changes.
cold.
Yeah.
They did a great job up there. I've never seen the top of the corkscrew look that good. Like, I've never wanted to go up there that badly, especially when you consider that, I mean, they call it Heart Attack Hill for a reason, and I felt like I was going to have a heart attack by the time I got up.
Well,
and
and
I had to stay up there for a good half an hour just to cool down, and make my way back down the hill.
Well, and then when you go up there,
I will make this a PSA for anti-smoking.
Yes,
Okay, we're done.
exactly. That's what happens when you smoke a lot of cigarettes. So.
well,
Yeah.
what they Porsche has an activation up there, and so they have some stuff up there. You can go up there and get some wooden tokens for pretzels and beer.
Pretzel and beer.
Oh, yeah.
If you can get up there, you get a free pretzel and a free beer. So I'd say it might be some initiative to go up
and
there.
a puff of
Yeah,
oxygen, too.
Wisconsin guy knew where the
There we go.
pretzels
That's
and
us.
beer
That's
were.
right. Beer and pretzels. I'm there, man.
So I know I can see on Richard's watch we're getting closer to the hour, and I definitely want to give a shout out to as you guys mentioned the volunteers, and we had some key volunteers on the team, and these folks have been doing it longer than I have. This is my third year in the management of Rennsport, and I think they've been doing it for 4 years. But we had David Bunch who oversaw the corrals.
Also, if you were paying attention to the Rennsport Reunion Porsche Club activities page, he was doing a great job
Yes.
posting. He's the only one posting on that, actually,
Yep.
while he's doing the corral.
Wow.
And we thought he would get in trouble sometimes, but when he posts stuff that was supposed to be kept secret, and then I would see it pop up, and I would have a little minor stroke, and then I find out that Porsche actually went against their do not publish this and publish it
Yep.
on their website. So David was just taking stuff from their website, but he did a great job both at social media and, of course, at the corrals, where Laguna sold 400 some more tickets for the corral, but I'm not sure if they really added any more parking spaces, so we had to do some creative parking. His wife, Sharon Nidell, took care of the volunteers, which meant finding space, not finding space, but finding shifts for 600 people, and constantly, you can imagine 600 people, their plans changed. They decided, I don't want to work hospitality, I want to work corral, so on and so forth, and she did it with a smile. Tom and Sandy Pravasi with the display, curating that. What's great is I don't have to worry about them. I tell them, if you have a problem, just let me know, and they do their own job, and it's it's incredible. We had Lynn Friedman, who took care of the pre-laps. Lynn is usually our Porsche Plots lady, volunteer who runs the Porsche Plots at different IMSA events, and we brought her on this year to run the parade laps, which she does at the IMSA Plots events really well. It was a little bit different here, especially with the early morning setup, but they and her and her team, first day there was a couple hiccups. We got them out on time, which was the main thing.
Right.
But we had a meeting. We said, here's what went right, here's what went wrong. And we worked with the track, and the next day it was flawless. There was 120 cars that we had to register, line up, and then get out.
Yeah, and then today we had
Every
another
day,
large
right?
large crew of cars out there, and you mentioned being here early. I mean, a lot of these people were here at 6 o'clock in the morning, the volunteers, but Porsche members show up early as well. And when it's dark 100, we're trying to find hang tags and what color is going where, because we organize them based off of color and
Wait a
corral.
minute. We? Were you out there?
I was out there
He was out there. He was. I
every
saw him.
morning.
I'm going to check the time cards, but all right, go ahead.
Every morning.
He was here. He and his son were here before I.
Yeah,
was.
Richard.
I know
was there
Justin
too.
was.
Yeah.
Justin
No, I
has the
was there
Justin
at-
look.
No, I got a real quick funny story here. So some of our members might know this, but last year, I think it was last year, we were doing our open house at Maryland. and I was helping put together or repack up the U-Haul, and I kind of slipped and fell out of the U-Haul and did a face plant in the parking lot.
Reminding me.
Right? Well, so I had like
He signed the waiver.
this deja vu coming back to me. This morning we had a long hood that couldn't get started. The battery went dead, and so he missed his first opportunity. And then so Richard says, "Todd, let's push this car." And I said, okay. So I put my clipboard down, and we were going to push the car, and the guy's putting it in first gear, and it doesn't start, and it won't go. And Richard says, "We'll put it in second gear." So he did, and it gets going, and he accelerates, and I had all my momentum going towards the car, and I had this flashback of doing a face plant onto the pavement. But my better thoughts came by, and I did a tuck and roll, and I just tucked and rolled, popped right back up. But I was going, wow, 2 years in a row now. I might be looking for a different volunteer position.
You know how to fall now.
It's like
know how to fall now.
It was a stuntman role. It was-
Absolutely.
He was the more
Absolutely.
content inside registration where he doesn't have to.
Right.
do
Can you
anything
imagine
physical
like
labor.
that's something that needed to be captured on video. It's like
Where
it starts
were
up
you?
and then he just rolls up into a ball.
Yeah, the person accelerated perhaps a little bit more quickly than mine.
So, and continuing
there was
with the team, Laura, our director of administration or office manager, she put in some serious hours outside in the juniors' tent. Even when it was raining, she was still out there, and I don't think the cover is waterproof.
It is not.
So she did a great job there.
And everybody in the merchandising area, oh my gosh.
merch-
Yes,
ladies.
the ladies, which I think we had a picture before, their Charlie Angels pose, did a phenomenal job. I think we sold more in 4 days than we do it the whole week at Parade.
Wow.
Of course, membership.
Sim Jim.
We had Lindsay, who's our volunteer for membership chair, and we shared the spot with a lot more people than Porsche told us. The registry, POC, the Porsche Owners Club, as well as Rhodes, and I think there was 4 or 5 other people that seemed like we were sharing, but they all managed to coexist in that little space. So yeah, it takes a village, as they say.
Well, and
Well, we
They
were
did
able
a great job.
They were
thank
able to pull it
both
off.
of you. Thank both of you for coming and doing such a fine job. And
Well, we weren't doing anything else. So
of course,
figured,
we
what the
missed
heck.
Boo. You know, I know
Yes.
Boo would have loved to have been here, but
Oh, that poor guy. He's just probably just dying to be here. But I know we've been keeping him up to date and keeping him aware of everything that's been going on. But yeah, he would have loved it out here.
but you folks did a fine job
Thank you.
filling
You know-
in for what he was planning and hoping to do.
Yeah, I think that's why Manny and I like working for PCA is, we get to do, it's hard work, but, we're here. And we're here for the whole time.
His review's coming up, so you gotta.
Exactly.
No, it's definitely a passion. I mean, who wouldn't want to be? If this is the worst you have to do. I used to work in packaging, and they have the tech.
That's real work.
The tech expo in Las Vegas, and I have never seen anything more boring than a convention. And I love Las Vegas, but I did not go to second year because having to walk for a convention center full of packaging. How exciting can you get about tape? Let me ask you. You can't. But looking at Porsches, that's exciting. So, yeah, it was a blast. It's a shame that we're going to have to wait. Hopefully not 5 years, but I got a feeling it's going to be 5 years. But in between, we're going to have a lot of great events. We have Unstock coming up in November, and registration's open. I was checking kind of like the people registering for. We're going to have by the time you listen to this. Probably you will have got noticed if you registered whether you're in the event. We're having it at HRE Wheels, which is a little bit north of San Diego. It should be a great event because we're having it inside. Some of the cars are going to be displayed inside of the factory. It's a factory. It's not a showroom. They have a showroom, but the majority is a factory, so you can see how these beautiful wheels are displayed. It's going to be probably our last big event till we start the whole process.
Well, we'll have
Tech
Tech Tactics.
Oh, Tech Tactics,
Yep.
thank you, because that is the event
Yep.
I do, so thanks
Yep.
for reminding me.
So make sure it's on your calendar.
Better check your calendar.
That's
Well,
why,
going to
that's
eBreak
why
soon, doesn't
Boo's
it?
such a better host than I am. I just give him the script, and he actually reads off the thing. I don't read off the script.
Well,
Yes.
then we have the cruise, Princess
Tactics
Cruise in
West. Well, I'm not
in
going to
December.
that, so I don't
Well, I
mention
know
that.
you're not, but some people
He
are
is.
going.
Yeah.
We actually have last count I heard when I was talking to the Princess Cruise folks. I think we have like 755 registered PCA members registered primaries.
Wow, that's
So Yeah, it's going to be a great time.
Another push, and I think there's going to be some celebrity or people you've probably seen in the Porsche world who are pretty renowned will be on the cruise as well.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Good. I think at this time, Robert always puts up the, here we go, the newsletters. They're free to subscribe to, and you get all the information. E-Brake News, of course, what Damon does, that's our big boy. That comes out every Tuesday, chock full of information. Everyone who says, I never heard about this, I tell them that means you're not subscribing to E-Brake News. Mart Fresh, of course, with the latest about the Mart.
Performance News.
Performance News, yes. He took it off the screen, and I should notice after looking at it for 3 years what the, there we go, Performance News.
All about the 4 doors.
Yeah, I think, is there anything else I have to close with? Subscribe to our, follow our Instagram channel.
YouTube.
Follow our YouTube channel. Please subscribe because I'm getting tired of looking at this $100,000.
Yeah, same here. I want to take that out of E-Brake.
I was looking at the sign up front that got wet and everything. I'm like, oh my, can't wait till we hit 100,000 so we get a new sign.
Well, then we'll just change it to 150,000. So
it's not
come
pushing.
on.
No, believe it or not, I think after 100,000, we got to go to $1 million for the next plaque. We really want 100,000 so we can hang the plaque in the office.
Exactly.
And my worst fear, Todd, is that as we get close to like 98, YouTube changes their policy, makes it like 250.
Right, that's what they'll do.
That'll be crushing. So I'm hoping they don't do that before you hit 100,000. So hit subscribe. It's free for YouTube. It'll make Vu happy. We all want to make him happy. So.
We definitely do.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and thanks to everyone who stopped by to say they were listeners here.
Well, thanks for having us
at the Rennsport Reunion 7. We'll be back in the studio in a week, so we'll have regular sound, and it'll be back to normal, and we'll have Vu back on the show. Gentlemen, thanks for being on.
Thank you. Safe travels home.
You too.